This is a clip here. Well, let's go back a little bit. Kendrick Lamar's Squabble Up video and song, obviously, samples an 80s dance artist, Debbie Deb's voice. She is not going to be receiving any publishing from this because of the story that's going to be told here by the One Song podcast with Diallo, Riddle, and Luxury.
So what's interesting about this is that you've got definitely that second one is the sample, the vocal.
Right.
And the first one might also be a sample, but it might
But
just
we're
be
not
a
sure
replay.
if he had some people replay it.
It wouldn't be that difficult to do. It's just that same synth, which isn't available on pretty much any DAW workstation, synthesizer. You'll have that bass patch.
Totally.
It's so iconic. But what's interesting about this song when you dig a little deeper is, unfortunately, Debbie Deb, who's so famous from this track, she blew up. She was 17 years old. She was a record store employee in Miami when Pretty Tony Butler came into the record store, producer Pretty Tony Butler, and liked the sound of her voice, her speaking voice, and had her sing on a couple tracks he was working on. She sang that 18-note hook that you hear. It's her voice. This is one of those classic examples, unfortunately, of the thing you're hearing in the sample. The person's voice you're hearing got nothing from it. She got work for hire. She got paid on the day. But in spite of that song being sampled so prominently on this huge, important song, she's not getting.
She doesn't get publishing.
She didn't get any publishing on this. I found a quote from her where she says, she was excited when she heard she'd be, on the track.
Yeah.
So Debbie says, I think it would be so amazing if there was some justice for me, just so I can say, yeah, I feel good about it now, because I always felt like I had a raw deal with it, and I've come to accept it. So I hope Kendrick hears me. I hope he realizes what happened to me, and he got some heart about it, and he realizes, damn, she was robbed. Quote, and if he doesn't, that's all good. I'm going to be fine either way.
Well, that's the problem with work for hire. Like those of you who are really deeper into the music, specifically James Brown, Clyde Stubblefield, the original funky drummer, who has been sampled hundreds, if not thousands of times. He gets nothing from any time the funky drummer, anything that he worked on as far as James Brown. He gets no credit, no publishing, nothing. They get to shout him out and be like, oh yeah, Clyde Stubblefield, who has passed on. He's with the ancestors now. I mean, the music industry is riddled with stories like this, with this song being so big and Kendrick being such a big artist. I mean, it's easy to point the finger and say, hey, he should do this, but his people went through their due diligence and cleared the sample, and they owe her a debt of gratitude for her contribution as far as, creating something that could be sampled and really, set up that song real nice. But he doesn't owe her not one single dime.
Nah, this is a situation where checks and balances have been, crossed off. Unfortunately, her paperwork wasn't right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. And this is one of those kind of, I don't want to say married, but kind of like as somebody that's made it in the business, that being Kendrick, you mind giving us like a good faith or a thank you payment, because you can. I mean, you can't really expect an artist to do that, because I don't know what your situation was whenever I went through my steps in order to make sure that I'm able to get this cleared or whatnot. I just know that I got it cleared. And now you're telling me I really like that you did that, and I was hoping that at one point in time I could get paid off it, but it's still cool. It's really not. You're saying it's cool, but it's really not cool to you. And you're hoping that he's going to go out of his way to send you a check. I mean, this is one of them situations, like Jay-Z's even brought it up. I'm overtaxing people for what they did to Cold Crush because their record deals wasn't right. So I'm going to make sure I get paid. That doesn't mean I'm going to cut them a check too, because I mean, I did what I was supposed to do. But I mean, if he decides to give her some money, I ain't mad at him. But I don't, in no way, shape, or form, feel that he's obligated to pay her if I did the right thing.
That's what I was going to ask you, Lone, what you thought about the word "oh." Where are you at with that?
No, I don't think he owes her anything from a legal standpoint or anything like that. It would be cool if maybe he put it in the clause or something that he got paid
percentage or something
when they sampled it or something. But that's how would you know? You know what I mean? Like it's not. It's really falls on her, and it really falls on the way the music industry was. You know what I mean? But
the guy in the video, it kind of came off like this is something that's wrong with the music industry, if you will.
Yeah.
But Kendrick did what he did his due diligence.
What does one have to do with the other?
Well, I mean, to me, he came off like, well, how come? I took it as if throw her a bone, like just give her something. I'm like, He doesn't necessarily, to what we've been talking about, he doesn't have to do that.
Well, you could look at it from a moral stance as well. You know what I mean? Like the reason why you have to pay copyright publishing in the first place in the grand scheme of things is because it's technically owned by somebody. Mm-hmm. It's supposed to be owned by the people who create the thing that they're creating. It just so happens that laws were created around this that stipulate this versus this, and you have to do this and you have to do this to do these things, right?
Right.
It also, the law was created in a way to where like you have to understand it and you have to make sure that you're doing your due diligence. It was very predatory at the time. You know what I mean? So I think this is multiple things can be true at the same time. I don't think he's obligated to, but at the same time, I don't think it hurts, and I don't have any issue with her also saying I was done wrong, and this is my voice in this. You know, it would be cool. You know, I think what she said is perfectly fine. Me personally, you don't owe me anything, but it would be nice.
I wouldn't be mad if he did toss her a little something. I think that'd be dope. Like, I wouldn't be mad at it. I'm just saying he did. Based off the laws, to your point, he did what he was supposed to do.
He did what he was supposed to do, but, you know, I think the only other thing that step up from here would be like, hey, we have to change the law, right? Yeah. Or we have to...
Yeah. But at the same...
How do you know, I mean...
But there, you know, once again, and I just jump into these examples because it blows your mind sometimes how people are offered... They're in a position where, okay, we'll offer you $1,000. For you to just go ahead and sing this, your work for hire. And I'm not even saying she got that much because she was 17 years old and she was working at a record store.
Yeah.
She probably didn't
$150.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Well,
you know, and so you're not thinking this is going to be something that not only gets played at the time, but then 20, 30 years later becomes, you know, the foundation of a number one song in 2024. You know, it's just like, I remember Vincent Price, you know, who's the voice on Thriller. You know, they said, hey, do you want, you know, points or publishing, or do you want this one-time amount of money? He said, I'll just take the one-time amount of money. 45 million records later, he probably should have, you know, he probably should have taken some back end. Same thing with James Earl Jones. We know when he was the voice of Darth Vader in the original Star Wars movie, I think he, you know, they said either, you know, back end or a lump sum of money. You know, as an actor, you know, in, you know, doing Broadway or whatever off Broadway at the time, you know, and he's like, well, I probably need that $10,000 a month. You know, what is this movie with a big walking dog and a wizard? This doesn't make any sense. You know, once again, $1 billion later, he probably should have taken the back end. Now he did get a nice deal to basically license his voice in Star Wars, you know, before he passed away.
That was smart.
You know, but at the same time, like, you know, it's a lot of times, especially artists get caught in a desperate situation where, you know, I need money now. You can't talk to me about something I might get 18 months from now.
We never know somebody's situation either, because when people are approached with certain things, we don't know where they are in their lives. Yeah. Some people got 2 kids at the crib and the light's about to get cut off. What you gonna do?
I think I don't know what you have to say, Terry, but I kind of think that this brings up a much deeper conversation around ownership and
that's what I was actually going to touch on. It's,
you know,
it's a situation to where, okay, Kendrick did it. He sampled it. He got all his checks and balances, but there's somebody that actually owns this and is being paid for it. Yeah. So this is a situation to where, like, okay, if these are the people that own this record that I cut and they were paid for it, and I was essentially was 17, right? Or was she a minor? 17 is considered a minor, right? Yeah. So in that type of situation,
not if you ask academics.
Well,
brilliant.
That's even younger though. Brilliant. In that type of situation, that should be something that comes down to the ownership of the actual record that should have had to have done something in order to compensate the artist that's on there, because she wasn't in a position to where she could sign a record deal anyway by herself unless a parent or something was present. So I feel like that's who actually owes Debbie Deb
for sure
versus a Kendrick.
Yeah, I that's actually a really good point. Yeah, I would say that. Again, it depends on what the laws are, but and what everything was, what the contracts looked at. But I would take it even a step further and try to reimagine kind of like the way ownership looks like in content and, you know, and all this matter. Like, there's 2 ways to approach this. It's like, one, everybody owns everything and you can just use whatever you want to use, which I don't know if I agree with that necessarily. And then there's obviously the way that it is. But then there's also, like, when it comes to publishing, I feel like there almost needs to be certain things in place to where, you know how like with copyrights, it doesn't really matter if you register it with the copyright office, as long as you create something and you can prove it.
As long as it's been postmarked.
Well, not even that.
Oh, yeah.
Well, not even that. Not even that. Like the copyright doesn't start when you send it somewhere. Mm-hmm. The copyright starts when you make something.
When you make it, yeah.
The only reason you have to send it to the office is so that you can prove it, right? And that's the easiest way to prove it. I almost feel like the publishing aspect of all this should kind of be the same thing. Like if you create something, regardless of if you paid somebody an X amount of money anyways, I still feel like, I kind of deep down feel like there should be, like if you're in a bad situation, Mike, and I sample one of your, something like a piano chord that you do, and you're like, yeah, sure, I'll give you a couple $100 for it, right? Then it blows up. Yeah. Right? And then we don't talk to each other anymore. Mm-hmm. I can just collect that money all the time, and if you don't have any, you're publishing. But I feel at the same time that you should be owed no matter what for creating the thing that you created. Yeah. I don't know how we get to that point necessarily, but I feel like that is a more equitable situation for these types of things. I don't know how the infrastructure can be built around this to where people shouldn't be able to. I know it's like this whole freedom of autonomy type thing and being able to sell if I want to sell my kidney, I can sell my kidney or whatever, right? But at the same time, I feel like people should be automatically given the ownership of the things that they create.
Or it should be like this was back in the 80s, so I think there's been enough years in between of when it was recorded and now that some of that, even if it was owned by somebody else, it should fall back to who helped create it as well. Yeah, or something like that. Like you get paid for it for this X amount of time. If somebody does it 20, 30 years from now, there's something in there that says, okay, this person needs to be compensated as well. I think it's really hard. That would be dope. It's really hard to document all that stuff. And I think that's kind of how the system is intended to be created, but it's just not sometimes. And what happens a lot of times with these people that are left out of these publishing deals or even master recording deals for that matter is they just don't have the means. So what you said, so like she got paid $150. She probably needed that $150. She at 17, but I've literally seen videos of her performing this song too. Really? So it probably led to something else at the time. Yeah.
That's exposure points. That's
exposure points. That's exactly what it is. And I don't know if she did any music afterwards or whatnot. But again, if you're going to the artist who did exactly or took the route they were supposed to take in order to sample this music, and they're paying them, and then I'm paying you too. So essentially, I'm paying two people. I don't see how that's fair. Now, I see where it makes sense is for somebody just being like, okay, I'm going to just throw her a bone because, you know what I'm saying, I appreciate what she did. But in the same token,
it could all be fixed if it was just percentages.
Yeah.
Right. If okay, cool. She sang on it. She gets 5%.
Mm-hmm. And just leave it alone.
Yeah. You know, this is what it is. She gets 5% residuals, whatever. But anybody that, like, I feel like it's just an expansion on the publishing the aspect of music making, the songwriting aspect of it. That almost like, I don't know. The more I'm thinking about this idea, I'm sure somebody else has already thought about this, but I feel like this should be standard. I don't feel like you should be able to sell your ownership of something you create in that type of manner and just lose it.
And just lose it forever.
No, I don't think you should be able to do that.
Because Terry makes a good point about statute limitations type concept where once time passes.
And that happens anyways.
Yeah, but it'll revert back, obviously. But
it's like 100 years or something.
Yeah, but that to that part, like that's bro,
not in anybody's lifetime.
Nobody's going to get the kickback. Yeah. So, you know, everything to your point, legalities and stuff are in place, but things also can be tweaked and they can be changed.
Well, I mean,
she says she don't.
That's what I'm running on.
She says she does. She says she doesn't need it. Okay, that's what's up.
I mean, it's not about you need it.
Not need it, but I'll be okay. Is that what she said? I'll be okay. Good regardless. Is that what she said? I don't want to misquote her. I'll be good regardless or whatever. But
it's at the end of the day, the music business needs to be revamped and restructured because I mean we're in a day and age now where. I mean, the streaming services have taken over as far as how this music is being consumed in the first place. So we can't revert back to the same old laws when the same type technology and the same type of thing that's being sold is now 10 times, 20 times.
That's true.
I'm saying further down the line and more improved.
That's true.
So you need to improve those contracts as well.
Yeah, and I think nowadays it's a lot easier to do these things because of technology as well.
Yeah.
No.
Vote for Lone so you can make some changes.
I'm running on socialism and music rights.
That's right.
Well, you know, it's because I gave the
I won't get any votes.
I'm gonna vote for you.
But we got the example of Debbie Deb, Clyde Stubblefield, and Vincent Price,
Endless.
James Earl. But also, hey man.
More.
If you haven't, and I know, a lot of y'all feel some way about DJ Vlad, but watch that interview with him and Jason Weaver when he talks about how
his mama, shout out to
his mom, and it was not just $150. They offered him $2 million in the 90s, which is life changing
right?
money.
Mama was like, nah,
we're gonna get that back end. And boy, I tell you,
he'll say it. I've seen multiple interviews of him where he'll say, I'm straight, still off that.
I'm still getting paid.
Straight.
Man.
And that's also Jordan's mom, right? Or Jordan's parents? Is that a true story as well?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you talking about like the air movie with the shoe?
As far as shot, yeah.
I mean, look at Michael Jordan.
Jordan mama was on it. She was on it.
The two cases that we're talking about that are positive, they had more than one party involved. The ones where they messed up, they didn't have anybody else putting them on game. And I mean, another one was Pusha T with the whole McDonald's situation. He took a lump sum payment for the da. He did that. He took the lump sum payment, and he screwed himself over on that.
They still.
And then he ended up in Arby's. He ended up with Arby's and made sure he got his stuff together then. But I mean,
think about Iverson's mom. Yeah, he gonna need $50 million when he get 50. We're gonna go ahead and throw that in there to Reebok. Maybe he about to cash in.
Yeah, you got people that are on your team and helping you out, but then you have if she's 17 years old, I don't think she has the wherewithal to be able to make that decision on her own.
Nah.
No.
Honestly, if she was 27, because the way
legally she doesn't.
But when you talk about the legalese and all this stuff that they put in the paperwork, and I'm not even sure, it might have just been done on a handshake. Hey, come record this thing in my garage or a back room. I'm
gonna make you a star.
That happens every day in the music industry, and you don't realize that what you have done is actually magic. And it'll turn into something. And then when it's time to say, hey, I would like to get paid for that, they'll be like, hey, man, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, and this doesn't just happen in those situations. We're talking about, little small independent. This happens when you go into the big rooms and the big buildings with the big companies. They still find a way to make sure that you don't get paid.
Yeah, this is Big Red Records.
I mean, so when you find out, someone does have a good record deal, you're like, wow, that's incredible. Because by and large, everybody has a shitty record deal when they start out. Yeah. I mean, and a lot of times you only get what you negotiate. So I mean. And the crazy thing is, you hear this story all the time about people walking in to talk with the record company, and and a lawyer and record company are on the same side. So your lawyer is talking to their lawyer, but they're all working together.
Yeah, you got a public defender.
Crazy work. That's crazy.
Hey, you don't even have a public defender. You have a prosecutor working with the other prosecutor to not help you out in any, and then they get paid to kick you. They'll make more money off your album than you will.
Yeah. Dirty game.
Yep.